Well, it's very similar. I come to the special relationship in a moment, because they told the special relationship means you have to do what the Americans say. It wasn't all like that. I mean, the special relationship, insofar as it means anything, was in the war where Americans came in and made it possible to defeat Hitler, and then there's a nuclear partnership. But I give you 3 examples. The day I was elected to Parliament, which is not the day anyone will forget, November the 30th, 1950, President Truman said he might use an atomic bomb in Korea, and the Labour Prime Minister Clement got straight in an aircraft through to Washington and stopped it. Give another example. In 1956, 50 years ago, when Eden went to war with Egypt in collaboration with Israel, Eisenhower, the American president, stopped it. Then we come to the Vietnam case. I was in the cabinet, and Harold used to tell us about it. And the Americans pleaded with him to send some troops to Vietnam. They said, even if you send a pipe band, it will at least look like a coalition. And Harold was doing it. He said, when he came back to everyone, he said, I went to dinner with Lyndon Johnson, the president, in the White House, and after dinner, Lyndon Johnson welcomed me as America's closest dissociate. And Harold did stand up, and Blair didn't have to go along with this. Actually, I think if Blair refused to go along with this, Bush would have found it very, very difficult to go on the war, because he would have reminded the American people of the Vietnam War when they were alone, and Blair gave political cover, what would our troops were necessary, but political cover for the war. And so I placed very heavy responsibility upon Blair for that. Can you hear me? If you can't hear me, oh, he's right, and he's absolutely correct. And I think he comes out of it good. I'm going to have a lot of criticism of Wilson, but on that, he's absolutely clear. And you see, when Blair says I had to take a tough decision, he took the easiest decision possible. He took orders from somebody more powerful than himself. I mean, there's no easier decision to take than taking orders from somebody else. My only anxiety about Blair being in power for another few months is that if Bush goes to war with Iran, Blair will support him. And that would be an absolute catastrophe if that would happen. Well, yes, you're Baptist yourself. No, it is very interesting, because you see, my mother was a religious woman, brought me up on the Bible. Every night we read Bible stories, and my mum said to me, the Bible is the story of the conflict between the kings who had power and the prophets who preached righteousness. And she taught me to support the prophets against the kings. And that, the older I get, the more I understand that. Got me into a hell of a lot of trouble, but that's the principle I work on. Then my dad said to me, because he was a congregationalist, he told the story of Daniel and the lion's den. Have you ever heard of him? Daniel was there, and the king, I forget where he was, the Jews were captured. And Daniel, his faith was tested because they put him in a den of lions overnight. And the story is that the lions so respected Daniel that they didn't eat him. It's a risky thing, which but dare to be a Daniel, dare to stand alone, dare to have a purpose for him, dare to let it down. I mean, that influenced me. And of course, because my dad was political, I mean, from my very earliest days, I was involved. I remember I met Randall MacDonald in 1930, I met Mr. Gandy in 31. I remember the Spanish Civil War where I was about 11. I campaigned in the 1935 election, pushing literature through Europe. I remember the Blitz. I remember seeing Mosley Marshall in London. And ever since I was a child, I've been interested in it. And I think my opinions have been based on that. You can read books, but really what happens to you that shapes your opinion, what you learn. And I've learned all my life, and I've got 10 grandchildren now, and my interest in politics is about that generation. Will they survive? Because it's not by any means certain. Well, it's a very good question about faith schools. I mean, I personally, you can't ban them, but I'm not in favour of them. My little granddaughter, who was 10, is at a primary school in London with 77 nationalities and a refugee centre in the school. And she knows everybody. She's got Muslim teachers, Jewish teachers, Chinese, Jamaican, Nigerian, and for her, that's the world. If you separate people off according either to their colour or class or even academic achievement, you deprive children of an understanding of the world into which they've been born. And so I'm against them. But I have heard Muslims say to me, the moral standards in Britain are so low today, we want our children to go to a Muslim school where they will be taught the proper values. And you can understand it. But look at Northern Ireland, Protestant and Catholic schools, it's played a part. So as I say, you can't ban them. I think all religions should be taught in all schools. That should be an absolute requirement. Everybody, whatever their religion, is taught about Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Buddhism, socialism. All the ideas should be taught at school. And if you do that, you've got a reasonable chance. But I am in my heart worried about them. But you can't arrest people and talk to them until you've got everything sensible. Well, I'm very lucky. I've got 4 children, 10 grandchildren, and they're tremendously supportive of it. And I've got a lot of old comrades that I've known in the Labour Party, and I still know. And I think friendship it's also the heart of marriage in a way, isn't it? You begin by having a desire for somebody, and it ends up as a devotion. You begin by having fun, and it ends up as friendship. And I think, when I got married, my dad said to me, keep a balance of affection back, because you will need it when you're married. And that's so basic before it all. A relationship where you can tell people what you think and interested in what they think, and it's sustainable. And I can get friendly with people I disagree with, you know. I don't think it necessarily requires you to take a common view. I know Dennis here, I stood against him for the deputy leadership in 1981. Below me down, when a couple of years later I fought a by-election in Chester, Dennis came up to speak for me. It was very funny because there was a big banner, Labour banner, and Dennis was standing in front of it, so was I. And Dennis said, Tony and I like Torville and Dean, and that was the banner. I got another video, that's a phenomenal picture. And then we went to a pub and played, and here we are, jolly old friends, all in the company and so on. And I regard Dennis as a friend, although I've argued with him most of my life. Well, I came to socialism in a funny way. I was born in a very radical Labour family. And then as I got older, particularly when I became a minister, I saw how the world was run. And then I read the Communist Manifesto, and I was a bit angry Marx had discovered it about 100 years before I had. And what I see about it is an explanation of the world. And it explains the world, helps you to understand it, gives you ideas as to what might be done. But I'm not, if I shock, I don't want to go around forcing you or anybody else to adopt my socialist faith. Because you see, as a member of Parliament, your job is to help people. I remember I once did a Marxism conference, and there was a lovely guy got up and said, comrades, we're all victims of capitalism, we will smash the state. So I said afterwards, well, it's an interesting idea, but if when I go to my surgery in Chesterfield, an old lady comes to me and says, Tony, I'm 80 now. My husband's died and I need a bungalow. If I said to a madam, you're a victim of capitalism, we were smashed. But what are the prospects for a bungalow? And you see, you have to address people's problems. And out of that, I learned things. Because I said to myself, well, she needed a bungalow and couldn't get one. Why? She ain't got gas lights and whatever. And I've learned everything from listening to people. I mean, over 50 years, every Friday for 51 years, people came to see me. And I learned from everybody. And then a minor strike, we saw them being treated like dirt. So you weren't supported. You learned from that. Firefighters strike. And the recent one, I went to 5 fire stations every day just to give a bit of support. You learn things. And so that's my faith. And I can't say that's ever weakened. But obviously you've got doubts about everything. But I've never doubted that that was the right approach and understanding of life. But as I say, I'm not a sectarian socialist. I don't want to force you to take my view. And I think sectarianism has weakened the socialism in the same way as does religion. And the Baptists fight the Congregationalists and the Sunnis fight the Shiites and so on. It doesn't really interest me. The people who impress me are the people who use their time in office to explain the world, who are teachers as well as executives. Now, funnily enough, very surprising, Mrs. Thatcher was such a person. She used her power to propagandize what she believed. I thought everything she did was catastrophic. She can't complain that she didn't say what she meant what she said, and did what she said she'd do. I think what she did was ghastly, but they'll compare that with the spin doctors who will come along and say whatever's popular for a moment. And I think cleverly acted, explaining what he knew quite well. The empire come to an end, and he negotiated withdrawal without the Vietnam War or the other. I thought that was brilliant. I don't detect in New Labour any teaching facility at all. We're not represented now, we're being managed. And there's a hell of a difference between having somebody fight for you and somebody who says, vote for me and I'll tell you what to do. And I think that is a complete educational and visual blank. Because people do want someone to fight for them. And now instead of getting elected to change the system to meet our need, we've got governments who change us to meet the requirements of the economy. And that's not my idea of leadership at all. But you look at Bell, you look at Gandhi, you look at Randall, you look at two people who had a huge effect on world thinking. And so those are the people I admire. But I try not to think of the future in terms of some guy galloping on a stage with a white horse and saying, vote for me and I'll solve the problem. It just never worked like that. It doesn't work like that. Well, I know 9 Labour leaders, starting with MacDonald, who sold out completely, then Clement, who I think was a very formidable chair of a committee and really determined man. Then we had, after him, we had Gatesville, who, whatever you think he was seen as a right winger, but by God, at the time of the Suez War, Gatesville denounced Eden for breaking the UN Charter. Then after that, Edwards, who began rather aggressively and ended up like a lot of leaders, totally paranoid. Then after that, had Michael Foot, who sort of, because he was on the left, felt he had to prove that he was reliable and therefore tried to expel the left, which was quite wrong. Then we had Neil Kinnock, everything he ever believed in, the result of which nobody believed the word he said by nation, which I thought was weakness. Then we had John Smith, who was right-wing but very principled, and then we've had New Labour, and Prime Minister said in 1994, we were getting into the Labour Party, New Labour is a new political party. He said it's his own party, I'm not a member of it. I'm a member of the Labour Party. And Labour has never been a socialist party, but it's always had socialists in it, just as there are some Christians and churches.